Okay, so hi, Flipping Junkies. This is Melissa Johnson, not Danny Johnson today. Figured I would take over for a day. Danny's busy working on making Flip Pilots super awesome, so I thought I'd have my friend on, Mike Cowper. Hey, Mike.
What's up? Thanks for having me on, Melissa.
I'm excited for us to talk and have you share some good stuff with everybody.
Oh, me too. I love being able to hop on these and chat with my friends. And then also, however many friends are out there listening right now.
Yeah, make lots of new friends. So just to let everybody know a little bit about Mike, he started investing in real estate at the end of 2014. And since then, he's done over 400 transactions using his awesome sales skills. He's a co-owner of Return on Investments, a wholesaling company that focuses on the Metro Detroit area in Michigan. And I'm just so excited to have you on. So let's get started, yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started? How did you come into real estate?
So it's somewhat of a long story, but I'll condense it down to the Cliff Notes. Essentially, when I was a young kid, my dad was an investor. He was investing in Florida when I was just in elementary / early parts of middle school. And I didn't know it then, but I guess a little seed had been planted in my head about, being a business owner and not necessarily wanting to work for somebody else. My dad never really has worked for anybody else in his life, as far as I can remember. He always kind of ran his own businesses, made his own hours, worked really hard, was able to provide for our family. But he was doing real estate investing, and I kind of slipped my mind and hadn't thought about it for a while. As I got into college and then ultimately a career in sales, the bug started really itching. I was working for other people and I wasn't liking it. I never really was able to, I don't want to say hold a job. I never stayed at a job more than 2.5 years because I would get antsy. I would like policies created by other people. I didn't like other people controlling my income. So I kind of had always talked about wanting to become an investor, become a landlord and have rental properties to create that passive income. So, my millionth time talking about it one night at my house, my best friend, Kyle, he just looks at me and goes, "Horse." And that was my nickname back in high school. Hey, you've been talking about this forever, man. When are you just going to go freaking do something? He might have used a different word and some beers might have been involved. But, at that point in time, I finally realized that, I wasn't taking control of my life and I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. And having, my friend be able to hold that mirror up to me really kind of made me realize that, things can get done if you want to make them happen. So the next day I started researching local RIAs, networking. I found, the different platforms, podcasts. I just started soaking up information. I went to a local RIA group and they had a mentorship program where they kind of help people get going and buy their first deal. I paid money to be a part of that. And within 3 months of that conversation with my buddy, I bought my first rental. Looking back on it now, they weren't the best guidance. They have some lawsuits against them now for some of the things they were doing, but it did really, at that point in time for me, help me get where I needed to go because I had that confidence level of being able to talk with somebody that was further down the path of me, that had done it before, could structure it properly or properly enough. And, I still own that rental that they helped me buy. And it's probably my most valuable long-term hold. And if my tenants weren't in there for so long, basically since the beginning, I'd probably try and sell it and, cash out some of that equity. But it's a cash flowing thing. I got it at a great price and the value probably has more than doubled since I've had it, which is awesome. So that's kind of the long way into it. But, I was able to take a little bit more control of my life. I took the appropriate action that I could with as much information as I had at the time. And I just kept learning more, one step at a time. You get better, you learn things, you become less afraid of things because the unknown is scary and the uncomfortable is uncomfortable. But one of the things my sales manager had told me when I first started in sales was, you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable in sales.
Exactly. That's where you grow, right? Is by being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think there's pictures of it everywhere. It's like that little circle, right? And then you have the little dot way outside of it, and the big circle is your comfort zone, and then the dot is where the magic happens. So getting outside of your comfort zone is a valuable thing. And one thing I've really recognized is if you surround yourself also with the right people, you're able to make sure when you're outside of your comfort zone, you're also not driving off the rails or off the cliff. So being comfortable, being uncomfortable, getting outside of that zone, but then also having the right people to help guide you and coach you and, network with is really valuable too. And I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the people I've got to meet over the years, the people that helped me along the way without asking for anything. And that's why I really try to help out other people along the way that don't really need anything. I've been incredibly fortunate.
Absolutely. And I love that, it does help having people that are accountable and you're like help hold you accountable, right, for what you're doing and that you can learn from. And just kind of going down that road for a second, like, did you have a mentor or somebody that was important to you that kind of helped guide you or keep you on track, or that you could kind of talk to when you were going through some of this stuff early on?
Yeah. So when it first started off, it was the people that I'd paid to help me out. I broke away from that pretty quickly after I found some other investors to network with, a little more savvy, a little bit more on point with what their numbers looked like and some of their strategies. So I've had several different mentors, I would say, throughout the time that I've been in this business. And the funny thing is that, when I first got started, I thought the mentor teaches you everything. That's not exactly right. Like, you find mentors for different areas, right? I had one really good friend that was very, very good at building up a rental portfolio. I think he's got over 400 or 500 units now. So he helped me a lot with, building out a landlord style business for the rentals. Then I met my partner, Mike, and then he really helped me understand the flip side and the wholesale side. Then we joined a mastermind group, and then we got to network with a lot of people. And I think that's actually where I met you, is in the mastermind group. And then that way, we got to bounce ideas off the highest level investors in the country and now in the world. So finding different people that have strengths and then, relying on them when those strengths are something you want to get better at, and reaching out to the appropriate person. Because I think, over time we can all become pretty good at everything. But if you find the people that are really excellent in a certain area, trying to ask them for that kind of guidance when you can, and having a specific question rather than just a rambling thought. Sometimes rambling thoughts are okay, but oftentimes if you get good mentors, they're busy. So if you can give them a pointed question about something and ask a good question, they're going to be more open to answering it rather than, how do I find a mentor? Right? Because that's a super open end. What do you need a mentor for? So trying to make sure when you're reaching out to the advice for people is knowing what you're trying to look for, or at least having an attempt at it by doing a little bit of research yourself first to kind of close down that window for what you can ask of them. And I found most people are generally very giving, because a lot of people come with the easy button. They want people to do it for them. And that's a problem. You can't have someone run your business for you, make your business successful. But if they see you're taking action, doing things, and now you're having an action type questions, or maybe like a philosophical style question, they're more willing to engage in that because they know you're putting the work in. I mean, that's the first way people don't get access to me is, I ask them to send me an email or ask them to do something, to just little baby hurdles. And you'd be amazed at how many people stumble over that small one and they just end up can't get my time. But I mean, locally, I have 2 people here that come to my office every week at Tuesdays, and we just have an hour session where I help them out as much as I can.
Right. And I think you're more inclined to deal with those people that are the action takers, that they are coming to you with some kind of, solution or plan, or, it's like, okay, well, this is happening. I'm not sure how to handle it. I'm thinking about doing this. And then, that's the appropriate way to speak to a mentor, instead of, what do I do? How do I
You
do
nailed it, right? Because with that, they're making it your problem versus owning the problem, coming up with solutions, and then asking for feedback on whether it was a good decision, a bad decision, or a good idea, a bad idea. It's a lot easier to help give someone clarity than solve the problem. How do I buy a rental? I don't know, have a bunch of money and pay more than everybody else, right? It could be that simple, but to get a good rental, right, you've got to run the numbers. And then if you've done some of the legwork up front, you can see that work's being done. I think it opens up the gates for a lot more opportunity with the people that you want to be around, because I think most of us entrepreneurs and investors value people that get after it. And we're more willing to spend time and maybe answer some more questions, or more open-ended questions, as you prove that you're the type of person that's going to take that information and go with it.
Right. And I like what you said too about just having different, because I had just been thinking about this too, about having mentors for different things, because, something that I talk about a lot too is knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, right? So knowing where you're weak and getting mentorship in that area, because you might not need it for all the things, but maybe there's something specific that you need to work on. So to that point, like for me, I'm not great at sales. Um, I'm great at building rapport, but then kind of going through and like closing the deal is very difficult for me. And I know you're the master at sales. We've talked about that. A lot of people, know you for that you're just really, really good at what you do. And I think that's awesome. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that and just, like, what do you feel like it takes to be a good salesperson? Is there specific characteristics or anything that, you know,
So I do get asked this question a lot, and it's a hard one to answer. If I were to say probably the biggest challenge for people is moving from the empathetic stage, right? So understanding and appreciating the situation someone's in, and the sympathetic stage where you actually put yourself in their position and go, I would never accept an offer like this, so I won't make that offer. So I think that line gets blurred a lot, and a lot of people tend to be people pleasers, right? They want to be liked. So I think if you do a good job of building rapport with people and then understanding that here's the numbers at work, if we can figure out a way to tie back that solution, right, to the problems they're having, because they're not going to sell to us at a discount unless there's something going on, right? There's something there. Otherwise, they just list it full retail and get top market value. There's something that we can provide a unique solution for, and understanding that with sales, you should be solving a problem. If you're selling something that doesn't solve a problem or doesn't meet a need or desire for somebody that they're willing to pay for it, then that's a really hard thing to do, right? Commodities would be incredibly challenging for me to get into, right? If it's, well, I can buy this bushel of hay for 1 cent cheaper. That's a hard thing to beat. Well, my hay quality is way better, right? Prove it, right? That kind of thing is hard. But whenever I've had a challenging sales position, my first one was in selling copy machines. Every copy machine is the same thing. I don't care what anybody tells you, right? so I had a really hard time selling that, but I got after it. So to become a good salesperson, I think you have to be willing to get after it and put yourself out there and be open to hearing a lot of no's, because that's what helps build that thick skin and understanding, sometimes sales is just a numbers game. You can't convince everybody. And I think people end up beating themselves up a little bit that, oh man, this person was terrible to deal with. I could never get it. Sales stinks. No, that's just one of the 40 people you should be talking to today. So the more people you talk to, the more yeses you end up getting to. There's definitely skills that help with it, but the persistence side of it, staying in touch with the people, following up with the people, building that rapport so they like you. So when you do bug them every week or two or month, whatever it ends up being, that follow-up system, they're not mad about it, right? Because they know you're there trying to help, and you're just, hey, I'm just here if something's changed. I wanted to check in. I'm still interested in buying your house. Where are you at right now?
mm-hmm.
Something real simple like that's one of my favorite check-ins. But being able to make a hard offer is challenging, but if you know your numbers, you know that what you're offering can solve a problem and that you can perform on that, or you have other partners that can perform on that, right? I wholesale. So that's what we end up doing, is mostly reselling the house very quickly or assigning the contract and selling the contract. But being comfortable with understanding their situation and trying to tie that back to why this offer makes sense for them and us is really what it's all about. And then being comfortable enough to kind of stand in the pocket. So it's kind of a little bit of a football term, but the quarterback that stands there long enough can wait just a hair longer than the defense, and they can, get a pass out or a run out. So I find that using silence and asking open-ended and probing questions to get people to talk, that builds up rapport. And the more they're talking, the more they like and trust you typically, and the more comfortable they're going to be accepting your offer, as long as you're able to stand firm on it. Because a lot of people, what they'll end up doing is going, I'll give you $100,000 for your house. And then they don't say anything. Oh, I don't really like that. What about 105? What about 110? Right? You'll start bumping up your own numbers. And you're bidding against yourself.
Right.
So being able to go $100,000, no, I won't do that.
To stand firm.
Oh, okay. How come? You need silence. You let it sit there and you let it hang until they answer, because most people unless you're somewhat, used to it or understand it. Most people hate silence. They're going to fill it. If it sits there long enough, they're going to start talking. And that's
I love
usually where people make that mistake is you fill the silence for them. Let them fill the silence.
I love that. That is actually my favorite negotiating technique. It's the only one that like is really in my, I hate saying wheelhouse, but like it's the only one I ever really remember is just to be quiet. And it's amazing how just being quiet can change everything, right? Just not even saying a word, suddenly it's like, we just did this today. There's this guy we've been negotiating with, and this is a follow-up thing like you talked about, like follow-ups are so valuable. We've been following up with him for months now, and we made him an offer, and then he, came back and we didn't respond for a while. Then he came back later and suddenly it dropped $5,000, and then, we didn't respond to that. We waited, 24 hours and then, it came back again. So there's a lot of power in just letting things sit too, I think, for a while, right?
Did you sign it up?
He's talking to his partner today. So, and we're down to like 80 grand on this thing. And I think, I forgot where we started, but it was quite a bit different of difference, and just the time factor, because, I think he had listed on MLS for like 120 or something like that, I think was what the number was. So it's like, well, it's not moving there. And we're your only option, and we've just stayed with the follow-up. So it's been interesting to watch that.
Well, I mean, and that goes back to, for the people that are just trying to get in sales or maybe scared of what talking to sellers is like, is the more times you talk to people, the more situations you get used to, the less uncomfortable it becomes. And that's where, sometimes it's just the last man or woman standing, right? The last person there gets the deal because everyone goes, all right, this guy's never going to sell. So dead lead. Not dead lead. It's a lead that should be checked in on. Maybe you can automate a sequence using an awesome CRM like Flip Pilot, or you can do something where you just send out a text message. People I've noticed respond really well to that. Hey, it's Mike, just checking in, see if anything's changed. We're still interested in buying a few more houses this week.
Right? We noticed that too. People are responding a lot to text messages.
I mean, I think it's just that technological shift. I'd still prefer to always get someone on the phone. So once they reply, I always go with, oh, excellent. Is there a good time to talk today? Because then I want to get them on the phone.
That's a great tip, actually. I need to make a note of that for us.
Well, because people can take their time in text. They can be more calculated. I mean, my thought process on everything is this, right? It's really easy to be a tough guy or a girl over the phone, and then even easier via text message or email. So I try to be super friendly, not challenge people too much on the phones, right? Gather information, build rapport, try to understand their situation. Quick tip, if you have a quick amount of time with the person because they're in a rush or whatever, you need to get 3 things basically. How much are you hoping to get? How quickly are you looking to sell and move out? And the and move out part is very important because you need them to connect the dots with getting out of that house.
Right.
And then how quick, how much are you hoping to get? What type of time frame are you looking for? And then that's how much can you move out? And then, crud, how am I blanking on the last one? I do this all day. What kind of condition is the house in? Duh. Because you want to know what those things. And then with that much information, you can kind of understand and make a surface level analysis of where you kind of need to be at when you go on the appointment. But then we try to book the appointment because it's a lot harder and difficult for people to be rude, really firm on their numbers when you're staring at a hole in their floor in person, right? Most people are the quote unquote internet tough guy, right? You can be that way when they're not standing in front of you, but it's a lot more difficult for most people. Again, there's no 100% anything, but it's a lot more difficult for people to be rude in person and a lot harder for people to justify the value of their house if, oh yeah, we just updated everything. And they put like, laminate or not laminate, linoleum all over their entire house. Like, I guess it's new floors. It's not really what people are looking for.
We had one the other day that they said, yeah, we updated it in 1987. Like, that's not really updated.
Yeah. So we've qualified that question a little bit further now, saying, have you updated in the past 3 to 5 years?
That's a good tip too, because yeah, we do ask, has it been updated recently? And yeah, 1987. Like
Yeah,
that's,
recently can be different for different people. So that's why we try to qualify with an actual, time frame. Because then that way they know it's a little bit outdated potentially. I mean, if someone did a really nice job 10 years ago, it probably still holds up if they were kind of forward thinking. But for the most part, if it's been outside of 3 to 5 years, it's unlikely to still hold up for what people are expecting today.
that's true. That's true. Good point. So when you're out there, you're at the appointment, is there anything that, that you think is a good idea that you should be doing or saying, any tips for that?
What I've found has worked pretty well for me is if I can go into the house and then before even walking around, just sit down and try to make sure I understand what's going on. So I will just sit down on the couch, not even ask permission, and then just kind of pull up in my notes and they'll kind of follow my lead because I want them to be comfortable and I want to talk about it. I say, hey, I just want to make sure I've got everything that I need to know here. Make sure I've got my information right and answer any questions you might have before we start looking around. Is that all right? And I've already sat down. So it kind of helps lead the conversation in the direction of it because I don't want to be standing and negotiating because people are uncomfortable. I think it makes them a little more tense. And being sitting down and then using that time to recap what we've already talked about, either our phone people or if we've already talked to them on a pre-appointment call, we can just summarize what we've done. So now, right, it's like you're peeling back the onion. That first call, you want to pull that first layer off, get as much as you can, but not kill it. Then the next layer, the pre-appointment call is what the acquisitions person does, in our company at least. They call, they take it a little bit further. Hey, you told XY this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I need to understand the situation a little bit better. So it allows them to open up and expand upon things they've already told you, but not rehash it. And then the third time, right, when you're in the meeting, at least in our business again, is that's when I go, hey, you've told us this, this, and this. Can you give me a little more clarity on this? And clarity is such an open-ended word that they can give you and run with it whichever way they want to go. Or can you tell me more about this? And it just allows them to hopefully get into a mood where they're telling you more about the situation because we want to understand what it is they're going through. What is the problem that this house being sold can solve? So the better we can do that about building rapport and asking those kinds of open-ended questions, a lot of how, why, and what type of questions will really get people to engage with you and typically be able to get you a lot more information than you might not need. You might not think you need, because even if something they tell you might be irrelevant to the house, it's relevant to the relationship. And this is a relationship sales business. There are plenty of people that have gone to those weekend seminars and didn't maybe get fully trained. They're taking action, which I commend them on, but sometimes they get told bad information too. And they'll go out there and tie a house up with no way to get rid of it, way higher than they can, and put people in bad spots. So if we can build the relationship, build up our credibility and trust, someone that kind of fumbles through an appointment versus someone that has a lot of experience. And again, that's why I say consistency and going on everything is important. That allows us to build that trust by having them talk. Because if they're talking about their daughter, their uncle, their brothers, their cousins, whatever it is, let that run. Don't try and divert it back too much. Maybe if it's going off the rails, you can pull it back in. But if it's something like that, that really is the trust foundation. So now after we've done that, then we get up and walk around the house. And I'm just kind of, hey, you know the house. Can you give me the tour, point out anything I should be aware of? You'd be surprised at how much people will tell you that way too. One thing I would suggest avoiding is calling the baby ugly. A lot of times these are people's houses that they've lived in. They're proud of them. Maybe they don't have the same means to be able to update it to a level that a lot of us flippers want to get it to, or landlords might want to get it to, or new home buyers want to get it to, but this is still their house. So I'm not a big fan. And I've seen a lot of people get deals away from them because they're, oh yeah, I was really proud of this. And they said it was terrible. I know we lost a deal once because one of our acquisitions people said, oh, got to update the vanity. They go, get out. I just changed that.
Oh no.
They kicked him out right then and there. So I try to figure out if I can find something to say nice about the house. And then what I'll do to point out the bad stuff is, stop at the areas, take down a note, and then take a picture. Because I always ask to take permission of, is it all right if I take some permission to see your pictures of your house? Because what I need to do is I see a lot of houses and sometimes they blur together. And this helps me kind of remember them when I need to put together anything for you in the future. Right. So I'll do that. I'll put oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's a great tip for people too, is to take pictures while you're in the house, but always make sure to ask permission first, from the owner.
Some people get uncomfortable if you just start taking pictures. So I always try to ask for permission on that, unless it's, vacant house and they sent me a lockbox or whatever. But for the most part, I really do always try to ask, because that could really turn it. Like, what are you doing taking a picture of my stuff?
Right.
Where's this going to go? So people get worried about that. So if you ask for permission, and then typically, every now and again someone says no, but for the most part, it's a yes, because they understand what we're doing, and they know that it'll say. And if you get pushback, say, okay, that's fine. Then if we decide to move forward, we might have to come back a few more times. Pictures help us try to firm up our quotes and bids with contractors without having to get them in here.
Right.
So that's sometimes a little way to get around them not letting you take pictures. But again, right, if you're flipping, landlording, or wholesaling, pictures are helpful, because even if they don't sell to you now, much like Melissa said, right, the follow-up, you can call me back in a year and I can go, oh, have you done anything in the kitchen? Because I'm looking at the pictures right now.
Right.
So now we can pick that ball up and run with it.
Love it. That's good. So, well, I think we kind of hit on this already, but I know we had talked about favorite sales tips, tactics. I like the being quiet thing. Is there anything else besides that really works for you?
One of the challenges I think a lot of people end up having is they can't get the number from the person over the phone prior to the appointment. I can't 100% verify this, but I cannot remember a house that I've ever bought if they didn't give me some kind of number on the phone. I was talking with Don Costa the other day, and he kind of said something that really resonated. If they won't share a number with you, they haven't committed to selling yet. I'm kind of thinking that might be true. They either have a ridiculous number that's way higher than anyone would ever pay for it, and they think that that's too low somehow, and that by telling you that number, you're going to offer them that. I wouldn't offer you that if you paid me. Well, maybe you paid me enough, but again, right, it goes back to that. So one of the things that I try to do is, there's 2 or 3 different talk tracks I use to try and get that to open up. The first one is, oh, okay, so look at it from my angle. I have a lot of people that have me to come out and take a look at their house. If you don't really know what you want to sell it for, how can I buy it?
That's a good point.
And then silence. Let them fill the void. And then again, if they still won't come back and say, okay, well, look, again, we have a lot of places that, people want us to come out and take a look at their house and make them a cash offer. And to be honest, I want to make sure we're the right fit. If I offered you $1, I don't think you're going to be very happy. If you said you want $1 million, I'm not going to be very happy. So are you open to maybe like a range that you could share with me just to make sure we're in the same ballpark?
I like that. That's a good idea. A range. Yeah. Because sometimes I feel like sometimes people, it's like a card game. Like they want to hold that close and not really share that number with you, because then, they know it's kind of over with after that. And so if you can give them the opportunity to save face, I guess, or, make them feel like they're winning in the negotiation, a range is a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, and I usually try to go in that order, right? I'm asking for a specific number, and then I give them the range option. So it's like you're backing down, but not really. Because, a 5-10 grand range to us is not much. And it always goes back to whatever they tell you on the phone, too. Don't be super concerned about that number for the most part. I've had $100,000 reductions. It's not, super common, but it happens. What people say they want is something different than what they'll take. And that's another thing. I ask them what they're hoping to get versus what they're willing to get. And then they use the opportunity to come back later. So I know you said you're hoping for this, but if I can't make that work, what do you think the best you'll be able to do is?
That's good.
And then you're kind of ratcheting them down little by little.
Yeah. So in those situations like that, where, there's a pretty good difference, between what they're hoping to get and what that you're going to be able to pay for it. Do you go ahead and set that appointment and go on that appointment, or how do you handle that?
It kind of depends on how busy we are, right? If marketing is hitting, but we're not getting really qualified leads, or the calendar's empty, we'll schedule them to get out there, because we do partner with agents and we refer them out. I'm an agent, but I don't list anybody's house for them because that's not what I'm good at. But I get a little bit of a agent split on the commission if they end up listing it. So I can go out there, I can build rapport, hand it off easier. And at the same time, I've built a relationship with that person. So if it doesn't sell, or if their situation changes for the worse and something needs to happen fast and they're looking for a cash offer, they're much likelier to call me back than a new postcard and start the whole process over. And I would encourage anybody, if you're just getting started off or newer, or, trying to get consistency, go on everything, because if nothing else, I look at it as practice.
Right.
I just read Never Split the Difference. Finally, it took me forever to get to it, but man, I'm kicking myself for not reading it earlier. So now send me on everything, because I'm just going to keep practicing all these things in here. Even if it's a terrible appointment and it's never going to happen, I get to practice those skills with live ammo. So now when that good, home run ball comes across the plate, I'm not trying everything out for the first time.
Right.
I've done it. I've got a little bit of that muscle memory. And I think that's part of why I've been able to create and come up with some of these talk tracks. I've tried and failed on a ton of different ones, and the ones that are working are the ones that stick.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Because that's something, that we kind of have struggled with in our own business too, going back and forth. Well, do we go on do we just set everything that we can that comes in, or do we pick and choose, and I think you're right. I think it kind of depends on where you're at, but definitely in the beginning, going on everything, because then you do get more comfortable even just being in front of people, even if you're not doing it right, and it's almost like freeing, right? Because if you're not going to get it anyway, there's no pressure there, but you still have the benefit of that experience of actually just going out and going to that appointment with no expectation.
Feeling that big pit in your stomach when you make that really low offer is one of the things that you're going to have to be able to overcome if you want to do the sales aspect of the business. Because most times, there are some people that come up and say, hey, yeah, I'll sell you my house for $5,000. Just get me my money quick. Awesome. That's not sales. The sales part is being able to make that uncomfortable offer, right? That pit in your stomach offer, and then be able to either justify it or tie it back to their problem and why it has to make sense and make it a win-win. Because, right, maybe the money isn't as much as they're hoping for, but if it can still solve their problem, that's a win still.
Absolutely.
Right? They don't have to win the lottery. They can still win.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it too. And we found it also, there have been many occasions where, people have taken our offer, even though it's less, because it's faster or whatever, it solves the problem for them in that moment. And then they just feel like they're done with it,
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
really the biggest thing. It's the solution to the problem. It's not always about the money. Sometimes it's something deeper, right? It's some other underlying problem. And that's part of that rapport building, right? Is trying to figure out what those things are.
Yeah. And I didn't get the deal yet, but I was just with a seller recently, and they want to move the first week of December. So they're really worried about listing it, and they want to stay here because they're moving to Alabama, but he has season tickets for Michigan football, and he'd hate to leave and miss the, Ohio State, Penn State, or I'm not a big college fan, so I don't follow that, but I guess the big rivals are all coming to Michigan this year. So he didn't want to leave before that. So that's the solution I can offer him. And it does need updating, things like that, but it could probably sell, CC, current condition level, right? Where it's, grandma's house. It'll pass inspections, but it's not updated. So I told him, you'll probably get more money if you list it, but you might not hit that timeline. And then the other thing I usually use to try and compete against agents is, here's the only thing I have to make sure I tell you. If you do list it, I totally understand why. But if you do list it and you give me a call back, there's a good chance I'm going to have to adjust my offer. Because once you put it on the market is telling us whether or not that's a good price. And if it's not a good price, I get to use that data to now update and amend my offer. I'm still more than happy to buy your house, but the price might change. So now you've planted a little bit of uncertainty that, your offer is not good forever, because especially here in Michigan, seasonality matters. Buying a house the first week of December is between the holidays. Nobody seems to like that, Thanksgiving into Christmas, but also we get snow, ice, slush, sometimes 7-degree days in, December. You never know what you're going to get here. So planting that seed of doubt is, oh, well, what if it doesn't sell now? So it might, but it might not. So agents don't offer guarantees the way we can.
Right.
Right. We take that variability away.
So one of my favorite things is, I'm sure you've been on, well, obviously tons and tons of appointments. So tell me one of the weirdest or craziest or funniest things that's ever happened to you on an appointment. I'm sure you could probably write a book, right?
The funny thing is I have a short memory on that kind of stuff for the most part, right? It's move on to the next one. And that's really why I think CRMs are so incredibly valuable, is that I have to put all of my notes in a CRM so I can forget about it. So I can focus on what's at hand. I do have a good memory on certain things, especially deals that I think I can convert. They'll stick there for a little while, but that disappears. But two that really stick out to me is this I've never seen before. Someone posted on my Facebook page recently too, like the weirdest things you see in houses. I was in a house, I forget when, but it was a bungalow and there were 2 rooms upstairs, small rooms. In one of the rooms in the corner was a toilet, a fully functioning toilet, nothing else but the toilet in a bed. Like it was in the second floor in a bedroom, in a small bedroom at that, right? Maybe like, 10 by 10. And there's just this toilet sitting there with carpet everywhere. And it's like, ugh. So that was pretty strange to see. I had never seen that before.
It was a working toilet.
It was a working toilet. Just in the corner of this bedroom next to the closet.
A prison cell kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, I should have made that connection sooner. But yeah, it was like that, except this one had carpet around it too. So kept all the nice, fungus and bacteria, I'm sure.
Oh, God.
So that was crazy. I couldn't believe that. And then one of the weirdest appointments I ever went on is I went to meet a seller, knocked on the door. He came outside, said he had a few other investors out there. I go, oh, okay. Mind if you share what they, were offering or kind of what the range was, see if I can do better? No, I'm not going to share that. I'm like, oh, okay. You mind if I ask why? He turned around, walked inside and slammed the door. Then he opened it back up, started screaming at me. He goes, you don't ask questions like that. You don't look at me like that. And he got really aggressive. So I was like, what the? I've asked that question a ton of times and never even came close to that response. So I was pretty shocked. I'm not proud to say I walked back and told him that he should accept the other offers from the investors because they are way overpaying for his terrible house. Don't do that. That was a moment of weakness and anger in me. And I have some of a vengeance mentality at times that I really try to suppress. And I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, that guy really ticked me off with that one.
You must have hit a nerve, huh?
I have no idea why. Cause I wonder if it's because he was BS and didn't actually have an offer. Because I asked him, that's why I said, why didn't you accept those offers? And I just kind of, I was using the silence. I was looking at him and it wasn't even a long silence. So yeah, that one caught me way off guard because I drove like a half hour to get there, half hour back at like 8 a.m. So I was kind of ticked off. That's probably why that little outburst came at the end.
It's like when being quiet goes bad, right?
Yeah, that was the only time it's really backfired. But this was in a D-class neighborhood. I wasn't super excited about it anyway.
Yeah, that's what we tell ourselves, right? We didn't really need that house, right?
Didn't really need that house, right? Let's go get the next one.
Yeah.
That's a good mentality to have, though, right? Because if you do, that's the other thing in sales, right? I don't want to say the person who needs it least always wins, because that's not the scenario most times. But knowing and treating each deal as an individual, but also knowing it's just a small part of the bigger picture does help. Because if all of your eggs are in that one basket, people can see and sense and feel either a desperation, a real longing, and that turns people off, right? Typically, in my experience, is people want to have a feel of you're the expert, you're confident, what you're telling them, because most people don't buy and sell a whole lot of houses in their lives.
Right.
So if you're uncertain, and please don't get me wrong, I want you to go on as many appointments as you can so you can get through this phase as fast as you can to build up your confidence. The more you go on the appointments, the more assertive you can feel and be, the more confident in what you say you'll be able to be, because you've been on more appointments. You understand how to talk to people. You understand valuations. You understand what offers should look like. So getting out there and doing it will get you past this phase faster. But I think it's a phase all of us have to go through at some point.
Definitely. And it's still, even after all this time, I don't go on appointments anymore. I haven't in a while, but there was a little stretch there last year where I had to go on some appointments. I'm like, God, this is uncomfortable. I felt so out of my comfort zone because, like I said, I was never really that great at it anyway. So I really admire people that stick with that and are good at that and can, push through that difficult part because, like I said, I feel like for me, I can get to a certain point and then I have trouble with the push at the end. And so people that can do that, I'm just like, y'all are awesome. I think it's like any kind of tactic or thing I can learn from that is great. So thank you for sharing some of that.
You're very welcome.
One last thing I wanted to kind of just talk about is, what is there any valuable lessons that you've learned or a piece of advice, just in general, in this business that you would like to share with everybody?
Yeah, I would say when you get into this, and if you're already into it, think long term and try to make sure you keep clarity on what your focus is. I have a tendency to try and go for shiny objects, right? Everyone hears about the shiny object syndrome. It doesn't go away, at least not for me. So I have to be disciplined to make sure I'm thinking about what the end goal is. I've gone down the wrong paths before in terms of I thought I wanted certain things. I built our business to, Mike and I built our business to a level where we had a bunch of people. And then we realized that what are we going after? We have more people, we have more problems. We're not making much more money, if any more money. So realizing and kind of trying to keep that end goal in mind while you're building your business and understanding, right? There's ups and there's downs, and being persistent and knowing that you're going to take your lumps. I think that's really important. And then, be comfortable revisiting what that goal is, because maybe it does change, right? Just because you set a goal 5 years ago doesn't mean that's what you still want now. People's lives do change, but knowing what you're aiming for really, really helps. I got in this for freedom. And there was a period where I didn't have much of that because I was so into trying to chase different numbers or goals that, looking back, I don't know why I was trying to chase them.
Yeah. It's crazy how that happens, right? I mean, you think you want this thing, and then it turns into something else that you don't want actually. And then you realize, oh, I did want it simple after all. We kind of went through the same thing too. It's like, it was just Danny and I for years and years and years. And then, we built a team, a small team, but still we had never invited anyone else into our business before. So that was a big change. And then it got bigger. And then it just, last year the team just was completely shrunk. And, it was just, it's always changing. Right. And I think being able to adapt and adjust, to your goals and to the market and what you want, your business and your life to look like is pretty important. Just being able to make those changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? I would be, especially for newer people, don't worry about chasing numbers. Don't worry about what numbers are being thrown out there. Cause right, you could do 1,000 transactions and lose money, right? The transactions don't matter. You can gross $1 billion, but if you spent 1.1 billion to do that, you've lost money. So think about what you're trying to achieve. Is it a big number, or is it a certain kind of lifestyle? Is it a certain net margin? Is it, time? Is it travel? Think about what you actually want to get out of this business, because I don't think any of us absolutely love every single part of real estate, but we do love what it can provide us if we do it with that intention from the beginning. Because like I said, when we built that, the big team, we were in different markets. Essentially, I built a cage that I got stuck in. And then we had to dismantle it. Now we're trying to rebuild different aspects of it to have a sturdier foundation, and then keep in mind what it is, what I'm trying to achieve, what my partner's trying to achieve, and then making sure that we're aligned on that, because then we can all row in the same direction and not go after the different things. Because every new cool thing that came out, we wanted to try and test it. And then, we just end up spinning our wheels a few times, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I did all this work and it didn't pan out. That's going to happen no matter what. But if we had paid a little more time and attention to what is this outcome going to look like? How long is it going to take to put into place? What does really done look like? Because I'm also notorious for starting things and then stopping them halfway through if I don't like it anymore. That's the visionary ADD person of me.
I hear that. And sometimes, right, bigger isn't always better. Sometimes and I think people need to hear that too and understand, you're right. Like you don't have to be doing 100 transactions a year. You can do half that amount, but if you're doing it efficiently and smart, you can be just as effective, if not probably more so, and really move you closer to that end goal, without killing yourself and having all that heart attack and pain in the butt about managing a bunch of people and trying to juggle all these things, right?
Yeah. I mean, the bigger a business gets, the more things that are going on, the more people you have to manage, the more processes that have to be implemented and maintained and held accountable to. And these are all important things, especially if you build it right and responsibly. Because I think it's shown out there a lot where, overnight success. Some people do get very fortunate, but I've seen behind a lot of curtains of people that have done things like that. And not all of them are as successful as you might be thought by certain numbers that are shared. So be intentional. Remember, this is a marathon. We want to be doing this long term, like Melissa and Danny, right? I've only been doing it for 5 years almost. I want to make sure I'm doing this for another 30, and building, again, focusing on the business that I want, so I can spend more time traveling with my family. I can, go do cool things with the people I like to do cool things with. And really, that's what my goal is just trying to create freedom, financially and time value, right? Go do what I want, when I want, with who I want, wherever I want. I stole that from a book. I can't remember which one though. So sorry if I didn't cite you.
That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your great tips and tricks and advice and everything. I always like talking to you because you're just such a fun guy.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I always love chatting with you, and I can't wait to see you soon in San Antonio.
I know. I'm excited. And we can share more about that in the notes. So that's just a little teaser for everybody. But before we go, is there any place where people can find you, just if they want to learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, Mike Cowper on Facebook. I'm not really good at Twitter and Instagram yet, but I'm being told I need to get better at it. So it's the Mike Cowper on Twitter and Instagram, I think. So I'll start putting more stuff out there because I never really got into learning how to use it. I guess I don't want to say old, but I never got into that when when they all became popular. So yeah, you can reach out to me there, or if you want to, shoot me an email. It's Mike.Cowper, Cowper at BUYROI.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. That was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on again.
All right. Take care.